Dwyer's opening win is a good sign things may have turned around for him. However, last season began in a similar fashion and didn't wrap up well. Laguna Seca might just help enlighten us as to what the future holds for him and his rivals as we get ready to watch round 2 of the Turn 2.0 Flying Huskies. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is DJ Clark. Behind the scenes is our director, Ryan Bauer, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Laguna Seca sees everything from the hobbyist to the professional tackle its iconic hills. Let's head to our track guide to learn more about it. Welcome to Laguna Seca. Located just east of Monterey, California, it's hard to deny that this is one of the more scenic American road courses. It travels up and down a hillside which not only offers spectacular views, but one of racing's most iconic corners. Clocking in at 2¼ miles in length, 11 turns split up the current configuration. I say current because up until 1988, the track's layout was shockingly simple with a mere 9 dangerously fast corners. But despite becoming a much more technical track, this difficult nature was retained in its modern form. Turn 6 in particular places an emphasis on precision and daring with its tricky dip at the apex and narrow racing line. But the most well-known spot on the track is, of course, the corkscrew. Blind and kinked on entry, it then whips the driver through a chicane which drops you nearly 60 feet. It's earned a reputation worldwide for forcing even the most daring competitors to second-guess themselves. But there's honestly a refreshingly wide variety in types of corners, making it a perfect track for driver coaching and training. Elevation changes, differing cambers, and every sort of apex imaginable leaves seasoned veterans and newcomers alike spending hours trying to perfect a lap. With the track becoming popular for hosting IMSA, IndyCar, and MotoGP in its recent history, it also brings out lots of vintage racers due to the Monterey Historics each year. Likely to remain a fixture on the American racing scene, this legendary circuit is almost always high on drivers' best of lists. Its history and its uniqueness are sure to delight all for years to come. Well, DJ, taking open wheelers out here for you and I, being IndyCar fans, just feels right, I think.
It does indeed, Joe, and I can tell you, these Formula 3 cars are going to feel right at home around Laguna Seca, but rest assured, they may feel at home, but it's not going to be easy for them. This is one of the most demanding tracks in America. Even with the increased downforce on these modern cars, drivers are going to have a very, very tricky time coming up the hill. That is always such a tight area to talk about, really all the way through turn 3, all the way up to turn 8. It's not a lot of heavy braking. It's a lot of just brush braking and lifting off the throttle and trying to get that apex exactly right, so it's really about mitigating mistakes up through there. Now, Laguna Seca has a bit of a reputation for not being the easiest track to pass on, and well, it's a reputation that's well earned. That said, the two best areas to really get an overtake done are going into the Andretti hairpin at the end of the main straight, and frankly, going into the corkscrew at the end, at the top of the hill, rather. We've also seen some pretty decent over-under moves get thrown down on the final corner of the track, turn 11, but that really requires a perfect exit out of the corkscrew and absolutely nailing turns 9 and 10.
I can tell you from experience, having run it plenty of times here on iRacing, that it is a technical course in every way. But before we get to the racing itself, let's talk about our sponsors, including Norsled, which is a non-profit animal welfare organization dedicated to rescuing, rehabilitating, and finding homes for unwanted, abandoned, and abused husky dogs. Today, every Flying Husky Racing track day or car event benefits Norsled with a portion of the proceeds donated to them. Even if you can't adopt, you can still help and ensure care for these amazing animals through your support. Save a Husky. For more information, contact Todd Curtis through email at todd@flyinghusky.racing.
Flying Husky Racing is a car club based in the Pacific Northwest that delivers premium track days and car events for automotive enthusiasts. FHR is dedicated to safety, development, and building community among members and participants. Find out more on the web at flyinghusky.racing. Flying Husky Racing. Track days are the best days.
And there's also the Turn 2.0's Drivers Club, which is a car club based in Northern California and founded in April of 2020. The club runs approximately 20 private days a year at Sonoma Raceway and Thunder Hill. It was created as a private, exclusive membership club designed for and by race car, track day, and racing enthusiasts that share like-minded values. These include safety first, camaraderie, fairness, diverse interests, love of cars, and a desire to learn and grow as drivers on and off the track. Have fun, be safe, and go faster.
And finally, tonight's event is presented by VSRS Motorsports. VSRS Motorsports is a multi-purpose consulting business focusing on the motorsports marketing and digital media space, as well as exotic, historic, and race car sales and other experiential events for car enthusiasts. Contact Rick Sheldon to learn more about VSRS Motorsports. Cool people, cool cars, cool events.
Now, the championship, if we take a glance at the points, pretty much reflects the finishing order of the first round. Dwyer up at the front, Anderson and Pansgrau giving chase currently. Now, Rick Sheldon and Escajada round out our top five, and some of them had a little bit better pace than their end results reflected, but they do have to get to the end of this race first. So even if they're fast over a single lap, which we'll check in on a second with this qualifying, you got to remember, they got to be consistent. What about for today's race details? What do we have in store, DJ?
Well, Joe, we are ready to go here for the floor mats and trunk liners dry lagoon showdown at Laguna Seca. As we mentioned in that earlier intro, we are going to be racing the Dallara F3s. Now, cars are currently out on track for a 10-minute qualifying session, excuse me, a 15-minute qualifying session, so they're out there right now, and that'll be followed by a 25-minute race. Now, a fast repair will be available to these drivers if they spin off, get a little bit of damage, and normally I would say that would be a death now for these drivers, but as we saw last week, if you come in and get that repair, it may be able to put you back up through the field.
So as the qualifying continues on, before we get to that, one thing we do want to mention is that recently this organization held a Flying Husky open house, and that was a pretty cool event. It was obviously in support of norsled.org, but they had not only some of their dogs there. Lucy and Lando showed up. They raised $24,500 for the organization. That is fantastic for a lot of dogs that are certainly going to appreciate that. And of course, they got to enjoy some cars with their F3 fleets and their new LMP3 vehicle, which is certainly impressive to look at. Right now, Kurt Pansgrau is looking quick once again, like we saw last week out in England, and Dave Anderson is giving chase. It's actually less than a tenth between them currently, DJ.
It certainly is, and Anderson and Pansgrau have really and truly just been sort of chomping down on those margins. Right on board with Dave. Now, this is that turn 9-10 complex that I talked about. Very, very tricky to get right, and absolutely crucial if you want to try to make a pass right here into turn 11. Oh, I thought for sure Dave carried a little bit too much speed through that corner, but able to get the car wound down. Let's see if he's got anything for Pansgrau.
Ooh, he does. That was a much better lap. And Anderson goes to pole 3/10 ahead, but Pansgrau is just responding now. The number 2 comes out of the final corner. Let's see if this one is going to be able to match that. It is a 16.924. That is not going to do it for him, unfortunately. So Rick Sheldon's going to be up next. Now, Rick is unusually far down in the order for his typical pace, a 16.5. There we go. That puts him up onto the second row with that lap right there. I
think you heard you on that one, Joe. And there, as we ride on board through that Andretti hairpin, one of the overtaking zones on the track. It's a very tricky corner to get right, even if you're just driving solo, double apex left-hander, multiple lines that you can take through there. And now as we continue to ride on board with Rick, you can see what I was talking about through turns 3 and 4 and into 5 here. Not a lot of heavy braking, probably going to pop it down 3rd or 4th gear. He's going to stay in 4th. That's good. He's not going to spin the wheels. So very, very tricky technical sections on this track.
I have to imagine the drivers will appreciate it not being real, and that is why a big moment there for Rick, putting a wheel off into the dirt on the exit of turn 6. In real life, I feel like he might need to come in for a change of race suit.
Indeed, and you can see there on the GSRC timing tower, we've had a bit of a change up at the top. Dave Anderson putting himself back up at the top with Hayden Fisher putting in a very impressive time of a 16.325 to put himself between Anderson and Panscrow.
Rick Sheldon going to try and get himself back up again because that bumped him down to 5th. And he does improve by a few hundredths, a 16.532, but that doesn't get him spots. In fact, 3rd, 4th, and 5th are split by all of, let's see, about 3/100ths of a second right now, so that could so easily change around.
It very well could. Following Hayden Fisher here, one of the newcomers to the series. Hayden looks like this is a bit of an outlap for him, or he maybe had an issue coming around that timing, not exactly working out right. So there you can see as he crosses over the line, yeah, that lap is not going to count for Hayden. Oh, no, there it is.
No, it did.
There was a time on our problem there, problem on our timing there, so that's a 16.232 for Hayden. Good lap.
Within about a 10th of Anderson, but doesn't get him the pole. But he's closing down on it, and he still has 3 minutes left to try and complete a few more. Since they do lap here pretty quickly, we could see him yet take that away, as Anderson did not improve that time through. We're on board with Fisher now. Let's see how he is compared to the likes of Sheldon, who we watched through some of these more scary, fast corners.
Indeed, there you go. You're going to just lift off the throttle there for turn 8. As I said, you don't really need to apply much braking. And then, Joe, here it is. The infamous corkscrew. Bring it down all the way down into 2nd gear and let that fall. And, Joe, I can tell you, I have been to this track in person, and there is no camera angle in the world that prepares you for just how steep that drop-off is.
He handled it well. As he comes around right now, the time is looking pretty good. It seemed clean enough for him. Off of that final hairpin, just leaving a tiny little puff of smoke. Is this going to be enough? A 15.980. That will put him on the pole ahead of Anderson.
Absolutely mega lap, but let's see now if Dave Anderson can respond. Now, he's got a little bit of dirty air in front of him. That is Dan Dwyer right in front of him. That could throw him off ever so slightly, but there you see Dwyer getting out of the way. Anderson now gets his way through that final corner and runs to the line. Let's see if he's got a response.
It's looking decent. He crosses the line. Oh, 16.143. That's not an improvement. Escajada behind him did go faster, but he'll stay in P3.
Yeah, so Matthew Escajada and Hayden Fisher here, 2 of the newcomers. Good to see them putting in some very, very competitive times, putting in these old-timers in the series that we're used to seeing, giving them a run for their money. So we watch Dave Anderson working his way through that infield section before he starts to climb up the hill.
And Sheldon just popped himself into 4th with a 16.490. So he's finding some time. Todd Curtis has been struggling a bit in this qualifying. He's currently sitting in 7th. Also keeping an eye to see if he does anything this time through. He'll have one more flying lap, and it looks like, no, that didn't count for Todd. So Dave Anderson up and through the corkscrew one more time, continuing to give a bit of a tow to Escajada behind him as he plunges back downhill. Has to make up a 1/10 of a second to overtake Hayden Fisher for that pole position back as he comes down into the final turn and out of that last hairpin. It's once again looking tight enough. Is this going to be it? It's a 15.714 indeed. Another 2/10 ahead of Hayden Fisher, and Fisher is on his final lap right now.
Yeah, and what is very crucial about that for Anderson is he has got time to try to get one more lap if he wants it in. So absolutely mega run there for Dave Anderson.
Checkered flag comes out. Looks like Sheldon's going to be our first to take it in the 63. He goes quicker, a 16.437, but he does not improve his position. Next up, Pansgrow, a 16.317. He also doesn't go any higher despite setting his fastest time of the session. And then it's going to be Hayden Fisher up next in the number 7. Can he retake the pole position, or is this going to go to Dave Anderson? He's around the final corner. Watching him come down to the line. It is a 1:15.855. He is just shy, even though he did his own personal best.
I think he may be kicking himself on that one. Next across the line, we've got Dan Dwyer to see if he can put anything in, and then Dave Anderson will be the last of the cars if he chooses to go for another fast lap.
He's going to stay out. He doesn't need it because he does still have the pole, and it looks like he had an off track in that one anyways. So that is the last of our qualifiers for today's event, round 2 of the Turn 2.0 Flying Husky Racing Series. Let's go through our starting order here, and it is going to be Dave Anderson who puts it on the pole with Hayden Fisher starting in second. Matthew Escajada will be P3 with Kurt Pansgrau starting in fourth.
Behind Kurt is going to be Rick Sheldon in 5th, followed by Dan Dwyer in 6th. In row 4, it'll then be Todd Curtis and Dave Hollers, who did not set a time there. And then in the back of the field, it will be Jason Chang.
All right, 9 cars going to be taking part in today's event, which has actually got great temperatures at only 70 Fahrenheit currently. It's quite early in the morning, 8:30 a.m. virtual standard time, as they get ready to grid up now. And the drivers getting themselves out on the track. And I think we mentioned it at least once before, but DJ, a lot of these guys have real-world experience here, so I have to imagine that's going to help a number of them really get up to speed quickly.
It certainly will, Joe. They do know the intricacies of this track quite well, and they will know one thing they're going to have to watch out for, which is, as cool as it is out in the air and as lovely as that may feel, very, very tricky coming down into those first couple of corners on cold tires. It's going to take a beat for them to warm up, so drivers are going to have to be careful and not go for all the marbles right off the bat.
I think we're just waiting on Hollers and Chang to put their cars on the grid, which they haven't yet. They might be starting from pit lane here, especially without a qualifying time. And so they will be a little bit behind at the drop of the green. You can see we'll not do a full pace lap. We're going to be starting just before turn 10. And then the pace car will pull in, let them go at the final hairpin. And it will be up to Anderson, our pole sitter, to decide when to go. So I think it looks like those two not showing any signs that they're about to grid up. So we're only going to have 7 of our 9 start on the track itself. The others are going to be exiting the pit lane momentarily once they get going. Last week was interesting. I mentioned it, DJ, how much consistency seemed to be so important at a track like Olton Park. Do you see that being as critical today as well?
I very much do, Joe. You know, there are, frankly, some similarities between the two circuits that these guys have run, in that I really think incident and damage mitigation is going to be key. Yes, if you can put a fast lap together, that is great, but you need to be able to keep all 4 tires on the black stuff. We've seen a lot of times, specifically charging up the hill, going through turns 5 and 6. If you just get a little bit of that right side over onto the dirt, it will spin you out very, very hard, and that'll end your race very quickly.
Now remember, if you want to get involved in the conversation on social media for the series, use hashtag TrackDays are the best days. Let's see who's got the best day today as we come around the final hairpin. Anderson waits for it. He's checking him up, and now he goes. Green flag is out, and it's a good jump for the 62 as Hayden Fisher slots into line. In fact, they're getting pretty single file for the most part in the front of the field as they all plunge down into Andretti. Brake hard for it. Anderson a little bit too hot. He's going to spin in front of them. Fisher spins as well in response, and that's going to actually put Pansgrau into the lead as he manages to overtake Escajada.
And that is exactly what I talked about, Joe, with those cold tires. Both drivers just getting onto the throttle a little bit early, Anderson in particular, and Fisher, I think, just spinning in sympathy. But here comes Escajada trying to come up on Pansgrau. He's going to go to the inside of turn 5, and he's got him. You normally don't see a pass there.
3 changes for the lead. We haven't even gotten halfway through this lap. Matthew now climbs up the hill with a clear track in front of him, and he's pulling away from Pansgrau as well. He has got the bit between his teeth. They brake hard for the very blind corkscrew and then plunge right back down behind them, I think. Oh, a little bit of an off track for Dwyer, and we got a spin, and Todd Curtis doesn't hit anything. Looks like he'll be able to get going. And unfortunately for Hayden Fisher, he must have gotten some sort of damage because he's now sitting in pit lane.
He is indeed, and I got to say with that Dan Dwyer incident, I think Dwyer doing his best Alex Zanardi impression, getting a little bit of an off track on the inside of the corkscrew. But as we focus back in on your leader here, Matthew Escajada, with already a 1.8 second gap over second place Kurt Pansgrau.
Wow, impressive stuff. So this is something where it looks like he might be the man to beat. And Sheldon, did he lose a spot to Dan Dwyer there down into Andretti? I think he did. This is a nice pass if we want to get a replay of the one getting himself onto the podium here. As he basically looked like he got himself a good run. Here we go. They come up over the crest here, DJ. He's already got him to the inside. It looks like he just finishes the job.
Exactly. Brakes a little bit late there. You can see Rick locking up that inside left tire. Very common going into Andretti. Get a little bit of a fuller back replay here. There you can see at that lockup, Dwyer just scared him off the line, was able to take that inside apex and move himself up onto the podium.
And I can report I was able to go back and check. Hayden Fisher went off on lap 1 at turn 5 and hit the wall pretty hard. That's why he's in pit lane. He does have a spare car. Hopefully he's remembered to get that checked in his little settings so that he can pop that in and get immediately back out on track. Right now, the number 9 holds a handy gap of about 2.2 seconds over Pansgrau, who just had a big lockup into the Andretti hairpin. Thankfully did not run wide, but clearly struggling a little bit in these early stages.
Yeah, not exactly feeling like the car is fully under him. I would expect tires to be up to temperature at this point, but as we've talked about a couple of times, the model on these tires is a little bit analogous to what you see a lot of times in the top levels of motorsport. If you push a little bit too hard, the tires will overheat and it will really bite you for a couple of laps, and so you've got to cool them down a little bit, and I wonder if that may have happened to Kurt here, just trying to get those temperatures back under control.
Good. Excuse me. Dave, Hayden Fisher is back on track, if I don't die in the middle of this broadcast. And Dave Anderson, who is currently our last running besides Hayden Fisher, is about half second behind Todd Curtis, and is looking like he's going to try and make his climb back up through the field.
Yeah, he's doing his best there, and there you can see it looking out the back of Curtis in that beautiful straight. Wow, big lockup again there into Andretti. We ride on board with Dave Anderson now.
Escajada set the fastest lap of the race. Oh, and did Todd Curtis go off track? Or I think, you know what, this looks like a connection issue. Yeah, he seems to have lost his connection. And, oh, he's coming back a couple times, but it's not looking good. So Todd having a few issues with the World Wide Web today. Hopefully that clears up in a bit so that we don't have a problem with Dave Anderson tried to pass an invisible car. This is our leader once again, already up to 4.3 seconds ahead of Pansgrau.
Yeah, Escajada really just doing a fantastic job here to keep the pressure away from himself, letting Pansgrau fall back. And meanwhile, Pansgrau, I think, is starting to look out of his rearview mirrors ever so slightly as Dan Dwyer is starting to close in.
Since we've got cars spread apart, why don't we take the chance to take a look at the start of the race and see if we can kind of analyze what happened here. Anderson, obviously the one that went around first, and then you'll see Fisher also go around. I think that was mostly him being surprised by what happened with our leader.
Well, let's take a look here, Joe. He gets the first part of that corner right. Yeah, just gets on the throttle a little bit early, and I think what happened there exactly with Fisher, you're exactly right. He was just startled by Anderson spinning. If you watch him here, there is a very hard, yeah, he jerks the car very hard to the left going into that second part of the hairpin while he was on the throttle. That caused those rear tires to spin a little bit, and that sent him spinning around. Great angle from Kurt Pansgrau, threading the needle through the two spinning cars to come out clean.
Yeah, that's what it looks like going from fourth to first into the first braking zone of the race. Kurt probably was beside himself after that one. Fortunately, it did not last. So Kurt is now back into second and has caught up a little bit. Actually, did Escajada just have an off here? I'm double checking, because he's lost a lot of time recently, and I'm not seeing it in the last few corners. So that's interesting. Kurt maybe just taking a minute to really get himself up to speed, but now that he's reeling back in the number 9.
He is indeed. Let's take a look at the lap times as they come across. That's a 17.1 for Escajada, and as Pansgrau comes across, the fastest lap of the race with a 16.7. So yeah, Joe, you hit the nail on the head. Pansgrau is coming on like a train with a full head of steam.
All right, so he responds now that he's got those tires up to temperature and this car feels good. Let's see if he can keep whittling away at that. Interesting news that Dave Anderson, despite being very close to Todd Curtis within a few tenths of a second earlier, he either backed off or had his own mistake, because he's now up to 2.2 seconds behind Todd Curtis.
Yeah, not sure exactly what happened there with Dave, but as we continue to follow Pansgrau here, you can see just very calm and deliberate. Let's stay on him through the corkscrew. I've seen Pansgrau lock up more than once coming into that corner. Looks like he's got it all gathered up under him. Like, nice clip of the curb there on the inside. That is textbook on how you come through that corner.
Is not gaining this lap from what I'm seeing in the live timing. We'll know for sure in just a moment when Matthew comes across. This is Dave Anderson now that we're watching on board with as he chases Todd Curtis, getting to within 1.2 seconds. Let's stay here, but an update. Escajada ran a 16.6, which you can see the fastest lap of the race. And wow, Pansgrau a 17 flat. So a little bit slower that time through. Not quite as consistent as I think he would like to be. Anderson around and to the line is now scored ahead of Todd Curtis, and I think Todd's internet finally gave up on him. We haven't had official confirmation. No, he reappeared yet again.
Yeah, so there he is, but while he was out there, Anderson able to whittle that gap down to about 1.4 seconds. You can see there, that's Hayden Fisher in front of Curtis right now. That is a lapped car. Fisher is a lap down. That's causing a little bit of problems for Curtis, so I think this may be a good opportunity for Anderson to claw back even a little more time.
Yeah, he went off at the Andretti hairpin as well, and he goes quite wide here through turn 5. Curtis, who rocks right up to the gearbox, can't do much into 6. He's going to have to stay patient and avoid doing things like that as he spins off to the inside, and it's going to be a big shunt down into the concrete.
Oh, that's just a lack of downforce from the car in front. The aero wash coming back to bite him. Let's check out the replay on this. There you can see Curtis following behind, keeping everything nice and orderly, and I think he just, did not anticipate exactly what he wanted to do and try to put the power on while he was off into the grass, and that sent him around.
Now he's got the car going, but he's lacking a front wing. I suspect he'll want to dip into pit lane to try and get a new one, because I don't think you really want to try and race this track without that front downforce. Escajada certainly has plenty of his downforce, and he has responded. A 16.4, even quicker last time by for the number 9, and Pansgrau only able to do a 17.2, so he's backed it up to about 5.5 seconds behind Matt for the time being.
Yeah, Joe, and I think that may have just been a situation for Escajada where he just didn't really anticipate how hard Pansgrau was coming on. Maybe decided to lay back for a couple of laps and then took a look at his relative and saw how close Pansgrau was getting and decided to just put the pedal to the metal and really start trying to run some hot laps.
Dan Dwyer here, running calmly. Remember, he is our championship leader right now, but this third place will certainly be some handy points for him. Still not looking like the quickest by any stretch of the imagination today. In fact, speaking of quickness, last time across, a 17.1 within a tenth of his fastest lap. So he's actually staying one of the most consistent. I'm looking at his lap times, and most of them pretty close to that quickest lap.
Yeah, he's running a very smooth race here. We check back at the car behind him. That's Rick Sheldon. Sheldon a little bit off the pace on that last one. Not exactly having the consistency of Dwyer. He ran a 17.7, but his fastest lap is a 17.145, so about 0.6 of a second difference there. We watched Dwyer. Let's see how he takes his way up the hill here. We watched some of this in qualifying. Very nice job to avoid that big sausage curve there on the inside. Let's see if he's able to keep it flat here coming up the hill. Little bit of a lift. That's a smart move. Try to breathe it off, and now he's going to work his way up under the banner, start braking just after it, line it up for the corkscrew, and got it.
They've left quite a bit of margin, but obviously it pays to play it a little safer around here if you want to just keep it whole until the finish. Right now, Sheldon has Anderson next behind him, now that Dave has disposed of Todd Curtis. So Dave's got about 12 seconds to make up. It was 10. He must have had some sort of problem just recently. Yeah, it looks like he had a small off coming through turn 6 himself, and that's what cost him those 2 seconds. And that's why he's back behind Todd Curtis, or excuse me, Hayden Fisher rather, even though he was ahead of him just about half a lap ago.
Exactly, and now this is going to be another great way to watch what that dirty air can do to these Formula 3 cars. Now, obviously, they don't have nearly as much downforce as Indy cars that we're used to seeing run around here, or their big brothers over in Europe, the Formula 1 machines, but they are open-wheel cars, so they rely so much on aerodynamic downforce to be able to get through these corners quickly, and that disruption from a car in front can really, really shake them up. We saw it bite Todd Curtis. Let's see if Dave Anderson can maybe pilot it with a little bit more skill here.
Watching from on board, this is where he made the mistake last time, and this time that was a lot tighter. Continuing to climb up towards the corkscrew, still not able to get past Hayden Fisher, which isn't too much of a surprise if I'm honest, because we saw how quick Hayden was in the qualifying. It's just he made some unfortunate mistakes at the start of this race. It's honestly the only reason he's down a lap currently.
Exactly, and blue flags in this series are just warnings. Drivers not obligated to get out of the way unless there is very much a situation of, hey, there's a battle behind you, that kind of thing. So Fisher just doing a good job here, and it's really down to Anderson to just try to figure out a way to get by Hayden.
Oh, goodness. Dan Dwyer has suddenly kicked it up a notch. For the first time, he's dipped into the 116s, and by quite a margin of 116.6. There you see it on screen, his personal best compared to Pansgrau with a 17.4. He's gained a ton of time, and it might be a case where the battle for second could be on in a few laps.
It very well could, and Joe, that is a mega gap to make up there. You can see, though, just slowly and surely chipping it away. It's not as if Pansgrau has had a big off here. Dwyer just on a charge.
Yeah, there you can see the lap differences between them, and 3 of the 5 have gone the way of Dwyer. I'm watching to see what Pansgrau does this time as he crosses the line. A 17.9. Dwyer a 17.6, so another 0.3 quicker, even though that was significantly slower for Dwyer. Wow. And he's got that down to about 3.3 seconds. He's clearly pushing hard. You saw a little smoke off that left front as he locked it up ever so slightly down into Andretti.
And we've seen a lot of drivers do that going down into Andretti, Joe. It is a deceptively tricky corner, the way the track sort of breaks away from you. For the Formula 1 fans out there, it is a little bit almost analogous to that first turn at Imola at Tamburello. You're kind of turning on the straightaway as you begin your braking cycle, and that makes it very, very easy to lock up those tires.
And even harder to fight with another car, as we saw at Imola as well, as Dwyer comes through the corkscrew. And it's not only Dwyer catching up to Pansgrau. Last time through Sheldon with a 17 flat. So this is looking a lot like the end of the race last week, DJ, where the top drivers were essentially all closing in on each other.
Exactly, and we remember just how excited you and I got as there you see Matthew Escajada setting the fastest lap of the race with the 16.3. Here comes Sheldon across the line. Let's see what his comparative lap times are on that last run. A 17.1 for Sheldon. That compares to Dwyer's 17.5 and Pansgrau's 17.3.
So that time it was Dwyer who had a small hiccup. Oh, and a spin directly in front of Kurt Pansgrau was Todd Curtis there. This might be a good onboard Kurt having maybe a small heart attack there, hoping his race doesn't disappear in someone else's error. Thankfully, the lapped car did not make contact with him and spun out of the way. Here we go.
Yeah, so coming out of the Andretti hairpin there, you see going into turn 3. Looks like Todd just goes a little too much speed through there. Whoo, never lift Kurt Pansgrove. That is some guts right there.
Yeah, and you can see how difficult it is to see through the smoke. So hard to tell exactly what's going on with that car. And they're coming around to complete another lap. I guess this will really tell whether or not he lifted, because as we watch the number 2 come to the line, last lap was a 17.3, best of a 16.7, 17.6. So maybe mildly slower. There could have been a little hesitation in there, as Dan Dwyer behind him, a 10th quicker at a 17.5, and Sheldon making a mistake, an 18.2 that time. Oh, but is that a... Oh, I thought I saw a car off. There's just, I guess, some smoke from Dwyer again, pushing hard down into the first corner.
Yeah, and that's almost becoming the norm, frankly, seeing Dwyer do that. But there's Dave Anderson putting in the fastest lap of the race with a 16.359. Good lap for Dave. He's still about 12 seconds off the back of Rick Sheldon, but he will be able to take solace in the fact that he was able to put in that fastest lap.
5/100ths faster than our leader in the race right now, Escajada. A 16.391 from Matt, as Dave said a 16.359. And still, he's stuck behind Hayden Fisher. It's a question of what could have been for that number 7. Ooh, and definitely pushing, as we saw Anderson once again flirt with the edge of the track.
Ooh, Dave just flirting with disaster there. We've seen that catch out many drivers of the course of this race. He does not want to push that too hard. Looks like he's been able to close in the back of a little bit on Fisher here, so that'll be good. If he can nail these last 2 corners, may be able to get a run down into Andretti.
Watching this, Dwyer once again going quickly, as he had a 16.8 and cuts it down under 3 seconds briefly to Pansgrove. Rick Sheldon as well turned to 17.4, so he was mildly slower, but second and third definitely getting close, as he's finally made... Oh no, not able to get that overtake. I thought for sure that was going to be it. Fisher and Anderson having a little fun out here despite not being on the same lap.
Well, and that is one of the things that we've heard these guys say time and time again, is they're really out to just have a good time. All obviously good buddies in real life. And racing on the sim like this, it's a way for them to get wheel to wheel, maybe have a little bit more fun with their cars than they would normally do out in the real world.
Another little mistake from Fisher coming through turn 5. But still, Anderson's not willing to go that risky. Try and go side by side. Oh, and off at the same corner as last time. Todd Curtis, that's who we saw there briefly, halted at the exit of 6. Similar incident from before, except this time he managed not to hit the wall.
And there you see coming out of the corkscrew, Anderson locking up at the beginning phase and Fisher locking up at the exiting phase of the corner. That allowed for Anderson to get a better run here. Let's see if he can wind this up onto the straightaway. Obviously, you see there Fisher pulling away ever so slightly thanks to the Constantina effect. And now we're going to get a little bit of a draft. Is Anderson going to be a little bit more brave on that left-sided pedal? Looks like he's too far back at this point.
Ooh, but both of them sending it in way deep. Now, that incident with Curtis was an interesting development, because Curtis lost 6th place to Fisher with that. He was a lap down, but he was technically ahead of Hayden until he made that second mistake. Hayden getting 1 spot just by sticking with it out there today in the final 5 minutes of this event.
Indeed, Joe, and that's what I talked about at the beginning of the race, about taking that spare car, that it may seem like a death knell if you think about it in terms of timing, but it can gain you positions. Let's watch Anderson here again. Oh, whoa!
Off goes both of them. A spin from Anderson coming into the corkscrew, and actually this might give the spot back to Curtis. It does. Curtis back into 6th now.
he says thank you very much, and I couldn't tell on that if there was a little bit of contact between Fisher and Anderson. Let's check this out on the replay. On board with Anderson as they work their way up to turn 6.
I think there's going to be a little bit of ghost contact from wing to wheel. We'll see it under braking. Just not sure if Anderson maybe braked a little bit later or if Fisher braked early. Regardless, it kind of sent both of them around. Eventually, thankfully, they're both able to get going. But now, and Todd Curtis has already given the spot back up to Hayden Fisher. So somewhere along the line, he got through.
Yeah, and there you can see that big bump there from Fisher. You saw the little bit of the crumpled wing from Dave Anderson, so definitely a little bit of contact there. Hard to tell if from Anderson if that spin was a result of that damage or if he just got a little bit blindsided with Fisher spinning across him like that. But we check back here with our undeniable leader, Matthew Escajada, an 11-second gap over second place.
Yeah, unless we get a major mistake out of the 9, this is his race to lose as the Red Bull liveried machine continues to lead the field since just about the drop of the green. Took the lead away on lap 1, hasn't handed it over since, but certainly didn't start at the front. Matthew qualifying in 3rd and showing that even though he got involved in an incident at the start of Olton Park, he can still take it to the field when he can get through that first corner clean.
Exactly, and Joe, you and I were wondering what some of these newcomers were going to be look like in this series, and I think between Fisher's very quick pace today, albeit having a couple of incidents here and there, and obviously Escajada's dominance, these guys have got to watch out because there are some new kids in town.
Absolutely. It'll be his first win in the series here if he manages to take this home. Kurt still cycling around, and fastest lap, I think, is in the hands of Kurt Pansgrow right now, if I'm seeing correctly on the sheets. No, looks like Dave Anderson still holds it with a 16.359. Doesn't count for much except for maybe an ego boost.
Well, and Joe, I can tell you, if you've had a bit of a rough race like Dave has had with that spin right off the bat, just having that fast lap, it is simultaneously an ego boost and the most frustrating thing in the world because you know you have the speed to be up there competing and you just weren't able to come through on it. But we'll have to talk to Dave after the race is done, watching him here as he makes his way through that final corner.
You know, honestly, I feel like it stings more anytime I've had fastest lap and I wound up at the back of the pack for one reason or another. Because to me, that's just like, I could have maybe been winning or fighting for the win on this one, but it just wasn't meant to be, either from my own mistakes or getting caught up in something. As Rick Sheldon comes up the hill through turn 6, still 3.4 seconds off of Dwyer. Those gaps have been flirting around that distance almost all race long, but the lap times have been all over the place.
Indeed, they've just not seeming to be able to close in a little bit. I was checking back on Rick Sheldon. Looks like he may have had a good run a couple of laps ago. Just got a little squirrely coming out of turn 11, spun up the rear tires. But there we watch Matthew Escajada, your leader, making his way through the Andretti hairpin for the last time as he has taken the white flag.
One more time around for Escajada, the second time of asking, looking at a win. Anderson also took the fastest lap yet again. Whoa, and Anderson just went off. I guess he's doing it just for fun at this point, trying to see how quickly he can go. This one definitely won't be fast for him, but he'll get one more shot at it. Anderson's cut it down to a 16.273. Matthew Escajada up the hill into the corkscrew. Doesn't have to push here at all. He's got such a huge gap. He can play this as safe as he likes. Nice and tidy over the crest and then back down the hill through Rainy Curve. Just 2 more corners to go for the number 9 machine. Out through the banking, and then it's a hard left-hander at the hairpin. Slamming on the brakes, weaving it around the corner and up to the line. Matthew Escajada is going to take the victory here at Laguna Seca.
An absolutely dominant drive from Escajada. Here we watch as Kurt Pansgrau does the same. We thought right at the start, Joe, that he may have had a chance to do something. Unable to really challenge Matthew here, but takes second nonetheless.
Dwyer with another podium. And Sheldon, very close at the end, follows him home. Anderson's going to be the last one on the lead lap. Why don't we watch and see if he can get this last fastest lap, and still nobody has taken it over him. That doesn't look like it's going to be any quicker, but definitely pushing all the way to the final corner as he crosses the line and claims a top 5 for today. It was not the fastest lap, I can confirm. That's going to take us to a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews, so stick around.
iRacing is a sim racing game that combines a true-to-life racing experience with an online community of virtual racers from all around the globe. iRacing offers a multitude of officially licensed cars and tracks, laser scanned with millimeter accuracy. Their car models and mechanical systems are based on real-world physics, engineered in cooperation with manufacturers and race teams. Their skill license system ranges from rookie to pro, ensuring members are always pitted against those with similar skill sets. Members are able to sign up for a weekly race series, compete in time trials, host a private race with friends, and participate in racing leagues created and run by the community. With over 170,000 members, iRacing works in partnership with renowned motorsports organizations like NASCAR to deliver virtual races based on the real-life NASCAR Cup Series, as well as many other series on the NASCAR ladder. iRacing also features team racing, providing a variety of options for members to create and manage their own teams. Race with friends or real-world teammates in full-length endurance events like the 24 Hours of Daytona, Spa 24, or the Bathurst 12 Hour. Additional partners include IMSA, World of Outlaws, Supercars, and IndyCar, allowing members to race in their very own Indianapolis 500, Bathurst 1000, Chili Bowl, and many more iconic events. This is iRacing, delivering the most authentic racing experience short of getting into a real race car. Sign up today at iRacing.com.
Welcome back to Laguna Seca as we just watched round 2 of the Turn 2.0 Flying Huskies Racing Series, and this was an interesting one up at the front, but most of it was decided in the very first lap. Escajada qualified in third, and as most of the leaders in front of him wrecked out, he didn't quite take the lead. It was Pansgrau who did that, and then he managed to overtake the number 2 in that same lap, and he didn't look back since. Victory for him ahead of Kurt, who did take P2 with Dan Dwyer in third, rounding out the podium. And then in fourth, DJ, it was Rick Sheldon.
Following behind him was Dave Anderson and Hayden Fisher, your front row there. Very, very quick in qualifying, but suffering some issues and falling back through the field. Todd Curtis coming behind them 2 laps down. Then Jason Chang, obviously, and Dave Hollers not able to take to the field for today.
There you see that incident that happened at the very start, which really shook things up. And there was the move around the outside that Escajada made to survive that one. It's actually a lot closer than I realized. This gives us a chance while we wait for the drivers to prepare to come talk to us post-race to really see what it was like from his perspective down into this incident. There you can see from third on the grid, DJ. And everybody's starting to go around in front of him. He picks the right side and just barely has enough room.
Yeah, just barely, and very, very lucky he didn't get those right side tires up onto the grass there. We saw that catch out multiple drivers over the course of the race. So I agree with you, Joe. I did not see that originally when we saw it, but just even more proof that this was a fantastic drive here from Matthew Escajada.
Looks like we've got our third place finisher ready to talk to us, Dan Dwyer. Dan, it's not a second victory in a row, but it's a second podium. And we have to say, you looked pretty consistent out there today.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, wasn't P1, but I'm still doing shoeies a La Croix at home to get P3. Yeah, just given how fast folks were going in qualifying. So I was pretty happy to outperform my P6 qualifying and get P3 in this race.
As someone who's already not a fan of La Croix, I'm trying to imagine what it would taste like doing a shoey with one of those.
Not any worse. Not any worse.
Well, a fantastic job out here today. It seemed like a lot of drivers did struggle out there. We saw a number of offs and spins from others around you. Were you kind of focusing on just kind of handling some of those more trickier portions of the circuit, like 6 and the corkscrew?
Yeah, I think I was doing okay in qualifying and actually walled my car like halfway through the session, which put me back to like full gas and cold tires, and I wasn't going to outperform my time, so I kind of just focused on doing some cold tire driving, which always serves you well at the beginning of these races. And yeah, I think it did today as well.
Definitely a clever move on your part for that one. Then, still, even though it wasn't a victory, I'm sure the points are probably going to feel valuable to you. Going to Lime Rock next week, what's your goal there? That is another one that can often be frantic.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely a track where I got some saddle time. So I think, tonight I was competing against a lot of the Laguna Seca locals, and, they were putting down alien time. So, yeah, I mean, hopefully I'll be more competitive next week. But, yeah, you never know. Anything can happen.
Well, thanks for coming and talking to us, and congratulations on a podium.
Nice chatting. Thank you. Bye.
That was Dan Dwyer. Up next, I do believe that DJ has caught up with our second place finisher, Kurt Pansgrow.
Well, Kurt, second place there for you today. And I've got to say, if we gave out points for avoiding incidents, I think you would take home a whole bucket load.
Yeah, I'm pretty darn fortunate, especially on that start where Dave's sliding sideways there, and I don't know if the other car there was sliding the other way, and I just kind of split right between them and skated by. It was great.
Yeah, you had that, and then I think there was a spin from Curtis as well that stuck you out. It looked like you were pretty consistent, though, throughout the race, and did it get to the point that you were just sort of just putting in the best laps that you can, not really trying to focus on the gaps?
Yeah, I mean, Matthew is so far ahead that I had no chance there. And then I was staying about 3 or 4 seconds ahead of Dan. So I kind of just stay consistent and finish this thing out and stay on the track.
Well, I'd say it worked out for you, man. Now we head to Lime Rock next week. Obviously a little bit tighter of a circuit there. We just heard Dan talk about how he was really excited about it because he's got some good seat time there. How do you feel about it?
That chicane's difficult for me, so we'll see how it goes. It didn't go so well the last time around, so hopefully I've got some better skills this time.
Well, we'll be watching you for sure, Kurt. And congratulations again on a second place.
Thank you.
And I believe we've got the rest of the field joining us now here in the booth, including our fourth place finisher, Rick Sheldon. And Rick, you were tantalizingly close, and it seemed like for a long time we were watching your progress. You kept gaining and then started to lose on Dan. Did it feel like that from your end? Was it tough to try and keep up with the pace he was setting?
Yeah, it was exactly what it felt like. First of all, we know Dan's crisp, and so I just know he's going to be solid. There was a couple sections I could watch that he was a little quicker than me, and a couple sections I was a little quicker. And I think what happened was I was trying to run at a pace that I had been running at, and I knew I could, but I had to nail it. And so I was pushing a little bit, and I probably made a handful of mistakes that would just give back that half a second. And I think he probably, if you looked at his race versus mine, you'd probably see him making less mistakes than me. So in the end, I enjoyed trying to chase him down. He's such a great driver. I'm going to get you, Dan. I promise. One of these days.
So, obviously, a little bit of smack talk happening there. We just watched on screen you taking avoiding action on that opening incident. What was it like from your perspective? What were your feelings?
Well, I just took a look at it too. I made a mistake. I went to the right, and if I had gone to the left, I could see. I looked from Todd's car behind me. He was right behind me, and he just shot right through. If I had made that move, I think it would have been a different story. But I made the wrong decision. But the good news is I didn't hit anybody, and went out and ran a good race. And I'm just one of those things in the smoke and the chaos. I don't know why I went right instead of left. Probably was a mistake. Looking back at it, just what do? You just go out and keep racing, right?
Absolutely. Well, that actually takes us to Dave Anderson, and I'm not sure how sheepish you're feeling starting it on pole and throwing it away in the first corner. I mean, do you want to say anything after that?
Everybody's done it. I think Rick said when I did it, he goes, "Oh, that's what I did a couple weeks ago." I had great hot tires, was doing, laps under 116 in practice and qualifying. I'm like, "Oh, let's go get it." And I just went too hot into that corner. And I just, as soon as I felt it spin, I was like, "Oh, I just don't want to hit anybody. I didn't want to ruin anybody else's race." So then I just figured I'd just hang back and find somebody to race with. So Hayden and I had our own little fun back there.
DJ here, Dave, and we were watching that pretty close. It looked like you guys were having a good time, and I can't help but notice you were putting in some mega laps, getting fastest lap, I think, by the end of it.
Yeah, thanks. I don't know what that was. I actually wasn't feeling very good about it. They weren't terrific, but qualifying and in practice, I was in the 15.6, 15.7, 15.8, and I couldn't break under there. But Hayden was making it tough for me to find any place to pass. But he was definitely pulling me along and giving me a reason to take some good laps. So it felt good. It was fun. It was I love this track. It's sort of my favorite spot, and I'm just glad everybody got through that kerfluffle. I'm borrowing your word in the first lap that I screwed up, because I was telling everybody, "Hey man, it's cold tires, let's be easy," and then I went and did the dumbass, thing. So, what do you do?
Well, I'd say you go in here. Yeah, I would say you keep driving, you put in the fastest lap. I think that's a pretty good response to it.
Yeah. That's all you can do at that point. You gotta fight for what you can fight for. And I knew I wasn't gonna catch those guys. I looked up, and they were all 10, 11, 12 seconds ahead of me. And everybody was in that everyone was within a second of each other. So I'm like, I'm not gonna catch them unless somebody starts making mistakes. So it was just a beautiful day out in Monterey. So time for a beer.
Well, enjoy it, my friend. And I want to shift finally over to Todd Curtis. Todd, looked like a bit of a difficult day out for you, but you just kept your nose down and were able to keep plugging along.
Well, I knew going in, my quality laps were like 2 seconds off the fastest laps that were being done. So I was just going to go out there and try to drive a clean race. And there was a kerfuffle at that one point in the very beginning. I managed to steer clear of a few other incidents that things were going okay, and then not so much. So, tried to put it back together, was doing okay for a little while, and then just didn't. I don't have a ton of experience at this track, though, but I enjoy it, and I want to put in the time to learn it, have more work to do, certainly. It's also a weird environment. We talk to each other during the race, which is a little unusual. If you had anybody talking in your ear, it might be your coach or your engineer. And it wasn't exactly like the voice of the race director encouraging me what to do. I think there were some technical glitches, and Dave was having a hard time seeing me. He said I was blinking on and off. My connection looked good. I didn't see any problems, but it was distracting. And so, didn't really regain the focus for the rest of the race, and just didn't put it all together. So, we'll come back next week and we'll try to do a better job.
Well, we'll keep our eyes on you for sure once we get...
Sorry,
go ahead.
Dave, sorry if I was distracting you there. You literally you would disappear for an entire half a lap, and I wouldn't see you. And that's why. And so I was only telling you that because if I came up and hit you, I wanted you to know that's because I couldn't see you, right? So I was just like, I can't see you. I can't see you. So I was apologizing too much, but sorry about that. Didn't mean to distract you. You ran some great laps even when I couldn't see you.
Well, thanks. No need to rebut. I was just explaining the situation. So, maybe next time it'll be a little different. The technical glitches are part of managing this. So, we'll try to fix them for the next time around. Way it goes.
All good.
Exactly. Well, Todd, I also wanted to ask you about the fundraiser that you guys recently held, because it sounds like A, just a wonderful time with some great dogs, and B, you raised a bunch of money for a charity that I know you have a lot of belief in and a lot of love for, and that I know we at GSRC share your passion for.
Oh, well, thanks for that. All this stuff is fun and good, but it's important to sort of give back and make sure what we're doing is important and helps out more than just ourselves. This is a pretty self-focused activity, so we kind of turned that around. We had a fundraiser just this past week up here for norsled.org. You've heard a lot about here to raise some money for the Huskies. It was matched by Flying Husky Racing and then matched by me as well. The total at this point, it continues to increase as of today. We just crested $25,000 total raised for the org, which is just huge and meaningful to their operating budget for the year, literally at that level. So I couldn't be more pleased with it. It's really nice to be able to show up and bring these multiple passions together, cars and hanging out with people that we like and doing good things for animals. So it's really gratifying. I really appreciate all the support from everybody who came out and showed up and put their support there for the dogs. So thanks to everybody for that. And if you have more interest in learning about Huskies, norsled.org is the place to go. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you, Todd. And you beat me to it. I was about to ask you how can people get in contact with you if they wanted to do anything, but thank you, and thank all you guys for a great race here today.
Yeah, we enjoyed it. Thanks for showing up and helping us out and keeping the league rolling. It's been a lot of fun.
Stuff, good racing all around.
We'll see you next week at Lime Rock.
Well, we're certainly looking forward to that, especially with how difficult that track is. It should be a lot of action, I'm sure. And we also want to thank the sponsors before we go. Again, Norsled, Save a Husky. For more information, contact Todd Curtis through email at todd@flyinghusky.racing. And, of course, Flying Husky Racing. Find out more on the web at Flying Husky Racing or flyinghusky.racing, because Flying Husky Racing track days are the best days. Turn 2.0 Drivers Club as well. Big thanks to them. Have fun, be safe, and go faster. As well as VSRS Motorsports. Contact Rick Sheldon to learn more. Cool people, cool cars, cool events. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcasts listed here on your screen. And additional thanks to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, DJ, Ryan, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. Also, check out our social media through the outlets listed at the bottom of the screen. And if you'd like to support the channel, check out our merchandise store at simracingmerch.com/GSRC. Link is in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, so you don't miss a moment here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Lime Rock Park will be Tuesday, April 27th at 11:30 p.m. Eastern, but we also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. However, until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.